The Trump administration has been pushing for China to cut off its oil supplies to North Korea, but experts say that could cause a mass starvation in the rogue state. According to David von Hippel, a senior associate at the Nautilus Institute, a California-based think tank, an oil embargo would likely devastate North Korea's agricultural sector, which could lead to food shortages for its 25 million citizens. The North is already struggling to find resources and has suffered from famine before. In the mid-1990s, an estimated 1 million people died from severe food shortages. Although some experts say an oil embargo will have limited impact on North Korea's missile and nuclear program, the White House National Security Advisor H. Chung McMaster said last week, quote, "You cannot shoot a missile without fuel."
Democratic People and Number 39, S. Republic of China State Council Chairman for U and Number 39, Beautiful Korean People and Number 39, S. Army. We came up to the commander, who is the oldest of the party and the country, places Kim Mu-sung to the step-jump sacraments in a statement that it is difficult to fight in the whiteness WPK but modern Politburo Standing Committee and won against the Democratic People and Number 39, S. Republic of China State Council. The vice chairman of Dangjin 10,000 people, the best comrades Korean workers and Number 39, Party Yang, Soo. Central Joint Chief Motive Korean Workers and Number 39, Party Central Committee Deputy Quiet Comrade Yang Korean Workers and Number 39, Party Director with Party Comrades for Long-Term Articles, Director of the Holy Land Chairman Yan Jungcheol Prime. Scattered members of the committee Field Mountain Pass East, and Protein Mrs. Yoon Jeong Mi. My only interest is the scattering Januran Hutnal Rai Myo the BFGF 11 Solemn Giambion. In addition to the pleasure of welcoming back his own great poet, the guns have connections with the historical baggage. Welcome to the seeds while keeping the recipient Gehip daughter precipitation find Jungwig 1 liter. It celebrated the winter solstice Baekdug, but the snow turned to December yet no one Arias and far never climbed MT Pikeshu agency digit weakened him 10,000 years in the marketplace was dismissed bar it still consumes a front SAT Han Manchong to 8 seek the advice of a harsh winter got 3 years old yo unlike fair weather I pi ol shio open cold. November to answer for the chosen find the acquired packed into a god one Burinder resurrection Deedle Myeokan regions also struggled to location city is not ruled Mosing Ga fluids Cheon Chol masters of time. What is it going to affect this corporate newspaper rather ridiculous blue wave and the famous Nancy misdemeanors another glaring reflection Baekguan unfolding mystical ecstasy it Dapnita shivering in the cold to clean il motivation is broken in relation to the end Jang 4 field do not tell. The fly to land my sister also rely on the faith Jeonamdo without Gullum shining historic cause of the country come to the realization of the inertia ball days without a strong and deep equatorial. Do you remember Chidoit the balance towering ball etc. I observant and dazzling worsened by dodging shots to win Jeong Gai Iopga ever used. I cannot look at if you are organizing leader comrade I and Number 39. VE climbed down in the dumps in Bashan first, because it crossing done see if you block today that. Giddy first but if the weather is sunny the peaks are strewn shores de Gassian near the front, he said Boindago more transparent above, the master bedroom it was organized to Mojilj flooding in the next Manman ground on the Bashan now. Without blurring even in this wind Raipur to move forward with fresh essences of brave warriors I can see out the appearance of the socialist powers and this was just the order of the ranking Cheon Chol stood bloodshot when a cabinet reshuffle gives always embraced the spirit of the victorious Baekje in any such decision also, but if they Yeo Hongchul 81 erased Xiang Shan intellectual and luck. Another house is decorated with poetry, with infinite greed and guts to today, and number 39, S elite beating 10 kills to lead the world come the legendary symptom of world best masters over flooded industrial accidents. Youth employment is he leader comrade, do you hear? As through a donation to the wife of the great leader PWTR is spiritual leader of the Korean experience Baekje Olbulgul going ideological stronghold of the disciplinary phones in Baekdu Mountain revolutionary tradition education. Better I went to Pak does not address the task of Gang Myong. It organized a Kwaya Egwe leader comrade. The rain and the yard was cultured from Bashan. Only the quality of any reflection of the total amount made it the autograph of the great general. The flag on the holy mountain of Mount Baekdu revolution, no matter which, was sometimes seemed to be the best weight without going to stand and say something positive. Wang Jinha he spoke top leader comrade organize he for the convenience of the atmospheres coming caught looking. Who said each new milking strengthening the role of the self to the Baekdu Herbs videos showing the car in Bashan director at a glance. By Great Wall take photos or the convenient location to the measures that also need well packed. He spoke place the first day of court, the Baekdu French coming on the earth. Following the blue folder Baekdu is 4 years breaking down the flow of history. Abandoned reminiscent of the agency by the town. It is also back in the Basal Naganoon along the great comrade Kim Jong-il planted this territory before and after. The stop line is not the Seng Sang play Yenya. I was afraid the rings even in a weak bleach, but in an amount of hands being played in the future I got to hit the future hails, so gotta be met through the venture blunders of too friendly win visibility level. In the amount of a great revival of the nation and number 39, S will Baekdum section 1700 of Kim Jong-il had the Ware Hurricane Industrial Complex in December, followed by the Russian New World. That is a pretty building given the multitude of neck voltage. Seeing the truth of the world and back when you play a quest carried OECD. I stayed behind, as well as announcements. The front part of Surrey in action. Welcome to the prize ahead of the staff people. Historic foreign exchange earning the Pixel Lab. Korea will be.
The region involves surface-to-air missile forces, fighter jets, and early warning aircraft. Though the drills involved multiple jets flying routes in areas it has never flown before, the Air Force spokesperson did not specify the day or days during which the drills took place or the exact locations the planes traveled. The Chinese Air Force said it will conduct high-sea exercises under combat conditions on a regular basis as it aims to improve readiness and safeguard the country's strategic interests.
Men on the planet. Donald Trump touching down in China on Wednesday, welcomed by President Xi Jinping, one of the country's most dominant leaders in decades. They're set for top-level talks, with Trump widely expected to push Xi on his perennial gripes, trade and North Korea. But despite the inevitable sticking points, Beijing seems upbeat as the two go head-to-head.
So, Mike, I think the best way to look at the current state of U.S.-China relations is to think about it as both interdependence and competition. So from an interdependence standpoint, if you really think about it, China is the #1 source of imports for the U.S. economy and the #3 source of exports for the U.S. economy after Mexico and Canada. We also have a lot of investment going back and forth between our economies, and we cooperate on a number of different issues related to peace and security throughout the world. So we cooperate, we're interdependent, but we also have competitive aspects to our relationship with China as a rising power and with different interests between the two states. And that as a result, you need to plan for, various contingencies associated with that. So does China want to be a hegemon within Asia? We don't know that. I don't think there's a way to actually know that, given the lack of transparency in their system and the fact that they don't, claim that as a desire at this point. But you could look at certain behavior that indicates in the longer term they could potentially become a hegemon. You know, do they want a hierarchical system within Asia? There's nothing tangible that indicates that, but you look historically in the region, and China has played a different role at different points in time than it does today, and there's been different relations between states than what you have today. So I think it's very hard to say what China wants, other than China wants to protect what it sees as its sovereignty. And to continue to grow its economy.
Yeah, okay, so the things you mentioned early in an earlier question. You mentioned a key word in my next question, and that has to do with the fact that no relationship survives friction. No international relationship among nations survives or exists without some friction. So I would ask you to give us some examples of some of the greatest disagreements between China and the United States.
North Korea, especially I would say over the last year or so, as North Korea's capability increases and as it becomes apparent that China and the U.S. have different interests associated. We've known this for a very long time, but obviously it's become a higher priority from a U.S. perspective, and China and the U.S. have differing views regarding how to resolve that issue, so I think that could be a potential point of stress.
So I want to ask you to look in a crystal ball and give us a couple of examples where the U.S. and China can and should cooperate more, specifically in Asia or maybe even in other parts of the world. What should we be working to do together?
I think the most probable areas of cooperation would be issues on which we have a shared interest. It's clear-cut as a shared interest. So basically, for example, global climate change. That's something that we could cooperate on. We both have an interest in, preventing that from occurring in the longer term, and that's something in the past we have cooperated on in certain ways. So that would be one. Developing green technology. Another potential area of cooperation would be in foreign aid provision or providing assistance to developing economies. In many cases, we play within that realm together from the standpoint of we're both providing foreign aid to individual countries, we're both providing various levels of technical assistance for economic development, and I think many countries would be able to learn quite a bit from both of our experiences. So that's something that I think we could do in a non-competitive way. Another example would be anti-piracy. We've seen this in the past with the Gulf of Aden. We have cooperated on those issues. Another would be United Nations peacekeeping operations, which China has been heavily involved with over the years. So those are a few examples. I think we have opportunities for cooperation, but we really need to focus on those areas where we have a shared interest, and there's not these debates over territorial integrity or over values that may not be the same between the U.S. and China.
Over the past few years, we've seen some instances where things had a potential to escalate. And I'm wondering if there are you have some specific recommendations that would give us some examples of the kinds of things the U.S. and China should be either doing to sort of eliminate these potential conflict areas, should we be doing, on things that we should be refraining from doing?
I think the best advice to give on that would be that we need to increase communication as much as possible. So we need to have as much military-to-military cooperation that we can have that still obviously protects U.S. interests and isn't threatening our national security. But ultimately, more communication is better, because where I see the most likely areas of conflict would be, for example, on the East China Sea, not necessarily a misunderstanding, but a miscommunication or a very minor incident that then escalates into a crisis, and we don't have the proper communication between our militaries in order to de-escalate that in time. So that would be one example. So I do think we need to increase in that way. That said, many